Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our next in the series of our In Tune with Coaching webinars. It's the third one so far this year. And tonight is going to be really relevant and very topical because recently all the sporting codes have announced that sport can resume at school level, and it can resume but with training only. And we've brought in, who will join us just now, is Joas from Sporting Football Club, because he is actually going to be talking on behalf of clubs, because in a lot of sporting codes, clubs have already begun. So he's going to be talking from that perspective. So we've got Niels Momberg on behalf of Cricket South Africa. He's going to be talking specifically about schools going back and what this actually entails. I mean, schools have not been competing and not been training now for almost a year, which is very problematic. So we're going to look at how has this impacted on all the sports and what does it entail going back? So I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Oh, one other thing. We have also got Noel Ingle. He's the chairperson of SA Schools Rugby. Now, he can't be with us tonight because he's at a very important meeting with Saru. But he has sent us a video, or not a video, something else. So we're going to be playing that as well. So there we are. So Sean is going to now take over and he's going to introduce our guests better. And let's take it from there. It is a great panel of people online. And yeah, let's take it from there. So Sean, I'm going to switch off my camera and my voice, and can you take it from there?
Great, thank you, Cassie. Thank you very much for welcoming all of us. As Cassie was trying to say, is that we actually have Noel's going to be sent us an audio clip, so we'll be able to listen to what Noel has to say, and we'll actually get started with Noel's audio clip. And unfortunately, he couldn't attend today, but at least he did send us an audio clip to explain what SA Rugby are trying to do. So let's get started with Noel.
This is Noel, South African Schools Rugby Association Chairman. Just in answer to some of your questions, on the 18th of February, we sent out correspondence under the adjusted level 3 to schools that contact sport training may be resumed, provided that all social distancing, hygiene, safety measures and that are observed, and that there's no physical contact between the participants during training. We also sent out an integrated return to training approach. It's basically 4 weeks of fitness and strength training, and Clint Redhead has kindly also sent out examples, etc., of what to do or what can be done. I would assume that most coaches know exactly what they're doing, but it is a guideline. At the moment, as far as we are concerned, although we've moved into level 1 lockdown now, that these still apply. We are awaiting a gazette from the DBE to give us further clarity on exactly what schools can and can't do. We have engaged the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture to try and speed the process up and find out exactly what we can and can't do under level 1 lockdown. We are confident that we are going to get a thumbs up and that we may return to contact training, and that there may be inter-school contact sport fixtures. In other words, we can play rugby against other schools, because without that, the game is going to be in some serious trouble. So we've got a meeting today. We've also got another meeting on Monday, and hopefully I'll be able to give more clarity. After the meeting on Monday, our position will go out to all schools. We still are, unfortunately, a little bit dependent upon the communication from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture and the Department of Basic Education to give us the final go-ahead and clarity. I am asking schools to be patient at this stage. We are making every effort, I can assure you, behind the scenes. We also lobbying with teacher associations which are fully behind a full return to sport, because the empirical evidence available now is sort of seeming to demonstrate that children are very safe. As far as the tournaments are concerned, that is on our agenda for discussion on Monday. We are hoping that as I sent out correspondence earlier late in February, that these tournaments will continue and in the designated time frames, which is the July holidays. I hope this helps. Just please be patient. These things do take some time, but we are all behind this. SARU, all the schools. We understand very clearly the impact, the negative impact this is happening in our rugby industry, and specifically the schools rugby industry, and then the dire impact that will actually happen on the professional game as well if we don't get back to rugby very soon. I hope this helps. I'm sorry I can't be there. I've actually got SGB elections that I have to attend. Good luck, and thanks for what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. Cheers. This is Noel. Bye-bye.
So Niels, I mean, Noel's also spoken about his plans in place, and SA Rugby's come out with their own press release about their plans that they've got in place. But you guys at Cricket South Africa have also got a lot of plans that you've got in place, and you've really been working on it hard for the last pretty much year to try and get play back. How are things sitting with Cricket South Africa at the moment? You're on mute at the moment.
My apologies. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that Noel has alluded to, we're in a similar position. I think we just have to make it clear that where rugby is seen as a contact sport or classified as a contact sport, cricket is seen as a non-contact sport. And yes, we've been working on all kinds of scenarios since last year. And if we can just take you back, cricket has been in a kind of a pre-season period, end of November, December, until the end of the year holidays kicked in. And then unfortunately, at the end of last year, we were taken into lockdown level 1 again, which then, of course, changed everything. Then in the last 2 weeks, Schools Cricket South Africa, we had several meetings, and we brought out 2 different communiques where it was made clear that as per the government's gazette, cricket practices and internal matches at schools may continue, which means you can have normal practices, normal fielding practices, and you can have matches between teams internally, which are called intra-matches, and matches against schools where you have to travel to another school is not allowed. As we all know, and very excitedly, or we all very excited, last Sunday, the president took us back to level 1, which by all accounts, and then I have to say this is my personal interpretation at the moment, because I looked at the last time we were at level 1, and if that's an indication, we will be allowed to play inter-schools cricket as soon as the DBE Gazette comes out. Unfortunately, our hands are somewhat tied until that happens. So our current position is, as it was last week before the president spoke, is that only intra-matches are allowed. But we fully expect that Gazette to come out in the next 4 or 5 working days, which means we are hopeful that by next weekend, schools will be allowed to play. I just have to add that Cricket South Africa's position on that is now, even if that's allowed, we are saying that schools should not travel out of their cricket provincial boundaries. And that means if you're sitting and listening, and if you're in Johannesburg, that means you can play against schools from Johannesburg in the central Gauteng area. So King Edward VII schools cannot play against Affies because they're in another member, or against a school in Ekurhuleni or Eastons. Boland schools can't play against Western Province schools, but Western Province schools can play against all the schools in that area. And that is the current Cricket South Africa regulation. But we are waiting for the Gazette to come out, and then at that time, Cricket South Africa will bring out a statement on how to go forward. But as we speak, we are in daily discussions on all areas: play, travel, who can attend matches, who cannot attend, and what Cricket South Africa will be, how we are seeing it, and that will all come out next week. But as things stands, we are still where we were before the president spoke, because that Gazette will guide us and will tell us where we can go at this stage.
Okay, so then there is some kind of cricket that might be able to happen, at least inter-school, as long as it stays within the region. So a Joburg school can play against a Joburg school and keep it within its own region. But then some of your regions have decided completely not to play cricket at all. And there are lots of different reasons. I mean, some of them are saying that the kids have got to catch up with their education first. They've got to worry about other little things, because they've started their syllabus so late. And so some of the provinces, even though Cricket South Africa have come back saying certain people can play, other provinces like Western Province, Eastern Province have come back saying that they are not going to have cricket this season, even though you've got an extended to May cricket season this year.
I don't know where the syllabus thing comes from, because having a son in grade 12 myself, I think if we don't have any lost days again, I think there will be more than enough days in the year to, and if you look at the school holidays, because I don't think that's an issue. But there are issues. The Cricket South African stance is as well, is that we create a framework for clubs and schools to come back. But each one of our members must make the final decision. And that means, so if a match has to take place, say a friendly between 2 clubs or 2 schools, they have to present their plans to the union or the member, and they will then sign off and say, you good to go. So it lies with them. And then understand that each area are in different levels of infection and deaths and so forth. And so for example, an area in the Eastern Cape might be a hotspot, and an area in Gauteng might not be in a hotspot. So if you're in a hotspot, I think probably would be irresponsible to allow cricket. But there are many reasons. COVID had a massive impact, not just from a medical point of view. I know in the Western Cape they have a massive problem. The municipal fields that are not prepared at the moment to you'll probably damage those fields if you play cricket on it now. It's an indirect result from COVID. And on those fields, I'm sure by next season will be fully up and running again, but at the moment it has created a problem. So I think we see this thing as very fluid, and I think things can change on a daily basis. So I don't think the doors are closed in the Western Cape in particular, where they've cancelled the amateur season. But I don't think the doors completely closed if the schools follow the right channels through to their head office at Newlands. For those matches to take place as soon as the Gazette comes out.
And welcome, Coach JB. Welcome to our seminar this week. Coach, you guys have already got matches on. So with clubs, it works slightly differently, and you also deal with school children age group. And your clubs are ready to starting to play football. I think this is the first weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
100%. First of all, sorry for being late. My laptop decided to do some updates right when I was logging in. But yes, we started training on the 13th of February, so that's exactly 11 months since the first lockdown last year. And we've gradually implementing our safety and hygiene protocols, which the parents have been very respectful, except there's always a few parents that try to break it, try to go through, sit on the grass and all those things, but we were ready for that as well. So now this weekend, today we're having a friendly at a neighboring club, which is BCC, and on Saturday we're hosting a couple of matches. Of course, this is huge pressure, not only on the players but also on the coaches, on the parents, on everybody, and also on the facilities. And we're going to assess if eventually everybody's ready to take this huge and very responsible step. I can share with you that we were going to play a very important league, that's GDPL, and there's many concerns around Gauteng. If the clubs are going to make everything safe for everybody that's involved in the matches to not spread the virus, because the virus hasn't suddenly disappeared. The virus is still there. South Africa still has around 30,000 cases. It still has over 100 deaths every day, even, and each number is somebody. It's not just a number. It's not just maths. So we have to be very careful. Another thing is that most important of all, before developing football players, we have to educate the children around us, and we're the first ones that have to show them that we have to take precautions. So this weekend we're starting with the matches with the younger players, which outside the field is always a risk because they have more parents watching their games. But it's going to be a very important step. But we've seen, I'm sure cricket has seen, rugby, everybody's been on the same boat. So we've seen many people anxious to participate, anxious to get competitions. The schools, at least from what I know in Bedford View, the schools aren't allowed to have any extramurals competing between schools. So we have another responsibility, that's having these permitting that these players have these competitions, have matches against other teams on an environment as safe as possible.
And from your side, how's SAFA kind of fed to you, or Department of Sport fed to you, that how can you go back to playing, and what are the restrictions that you face? Because not only do you have a club, you've got a club in a school, so you
Exactly.
still have the school kids walking around the school and that kind of stuff. So what restrictions do you face?
Well, there's positives and negatives. We, together with the coaches that have been leading the process in South Africa, we did a SWOT analysis and checked where were the biggest risks. At Redden, they've been trying to be very strict at break time and before and after school. Our parents aren't allowed to get out of the cars, for instance. This weekend at the matches will allow them to be on the sides of the field, but keeping social distance. Everybody is going to have their temperatures measured. Everybody has to wear masks, but we can never be 100% safe. So regarding SAFA, I can just say that I understand the big challenge that SAFA has. Like I shared in the first webinar that I was invited to, was honored to be present. South Africa is the 4th country in the world with most kids playing football, and it's one of the top 5 countries in the world with most clubs affiliated. So, and football is the king sport of the world. So we have various communities inside the townships, inside squatter camps, various facilities that probably aren't as ready to protect everybody involved with the COVID-19 protocol. So I'm sure SAFA delaying us getting back on the field was also thinking that not everybody has the same capacities to keep everybody safe. SAFA, I think they could have done a little bit more, but nobody was prepared for this, from the football government bodies, the government, nobody. So it took us by surprise. But I think most of all we have to keep it safe. Kids have to go back out to practice sports, to be involved in team activities, which they've been away for almost a year now. But I have my opinion. SAFA has their opinion. I'm sure they tried their best, but this is a very delicate matter, and we're not dealing with numbers. We're dealing with people, and I'm sure, at least in Portugal, where I'm staying at the moment, and I'm sure many families in South Africa will all know somebody that passed away through COVID-19. Probably not 100% because of COVID-19, or because they had other health issues, and that COVID-19 made it aggravated their situation, and they eventually died. So those numbers that we check every day, one number is each number is somebody that belongs to a family, or a father or a mother or a son or a grandfather. So I'm at our league, which is Easterns, which we belong to, that's played around Bedford View. We've proposed, I've made a few proposals. Of course, I'm always available to help any way that I can, not only because we have a different approach here in Portugal. We started, then we stopped. In England, I know a few teams, a few clubs that also start and stop now, going to start in a couple of weeks. But countries have different philosophies, have different disciplines, have a different way of seeing these things. So I'm sure SAFA is doing the best they can, as Easterns, as FAP, as everybody involved is in football is trying their best. We're all anxious to go back on the field, but again, we don't want to take these steps towards the inside the field, and then we have to run outside the field again because because we were too hasty and we weren't ready for that. But I'm sure all the local federations, the local associations in South Africa have to put, I'm sure, no, they have to put huge pressure on the clubs. And I'm sure all of us have seen posts on Facebook and on social media of coaches without a mask, or coaches with a mask on their chin, boys not, the players not being, not taking their temperatures, no protocols at all. And to be honest with you, and I share it with everybody, I'm on social media linked to many clubs in South Africa, and when I see that happening, I share it with our local association that then takes it on their hands to alert those clubs that they have to be careful. But they can't be everywhere, they can't chase everybody. It has to be us setting the standards and again keeping everybody safe.
Now, you as a club, you guys have got millions of kids that play football all over the world. You've got different programs, and different countries do different things for the coronavirus, different restrictions. I'm sure you guys have discussed it internally. What are some of the learnings that you've got from other countries that we could maybe apply in South Africa? It's
curious that you asked that. Last week we had a couple of online meetings, brainstorming various just a platform where we share things between our sporting academies, because we got academies in almost all the continents in the world. We're over a family of over 50 academies worldwide. So we were sharing the reality, even in Portugal, even though Portugal is very small. So the distance you take from Joburg to Durban is also almost the same distance from the south of Portugal to the north of Portugal. But we've got various realities, and everybody takes it a different way. Some things are common. For instance, we take protocols very seriously on the field. Sporting is very strict on the clubs taking their protocols through. And then when the boys leave the field, they're playing football in the parking lot, they're playing football in the streets. So, but we do our part. But there's various things here. When I first came in March last year, and when I came back in December for Christmas, after being in South Africa, I went to various academies, and the protocols are almost the same everywhere. It's just how strict you are to implement those protocols. And again, the biggest example comes from the coaches. If the coaches don't wear a mask, it's showing the kids that it's okay. If the coaches don't sanitize their hands, it's showing that it's okay. So we try to set the example again to the kids, and because I'm sure in all the other clubs and in all the other sports, there's some families that are more skeptic about going back on the field. Some parents or some families are completely confident that nothing's going to happen. So I'm sure that's the reality all over. But we have to keep everybody at the same level, keep everybody under pressure. And we've seen, for instance, last week, and me being 10,000 kilometers away, I have these paparazzi around the field that sometimes send me pictures of a parent not with a mask. Last week there was two parents chatting very close to each other, so I have to put it out to the parents that they're the ones that they have to be responsible. We'll implement it, but we can't be everywhere. So the protocols here in Portugal, and talking to the academy, we have academy also in Canada and in Angola. Like I say, the protocols are almost the same. Take the temperatures, make a questionnaire at the beginning of the training sessions, sanitize everything before and after the training session. There's no shaking hands. There's no hugging. At Sporting with the bibs, that was a very nice discussion to have in the group that we were discussing the comeback of football. The bibs, we did it two ways. At Sporting, we washed the bibs after each session. Of course, it's an extra expense. It's an extra burden to wait for the bibs to wash and to dry. We also implemented on a few days during the week. What we do is the boys turn their shirt inside out, because at Sporting everybody trains with the same shirts. Those little things we have to do. We have to do it, like I said, to take steps inside the field and not have to run out of the field again, because the numbers escalated and we got people sick at the academy. So, but it's the protocols are almost the same. But everybody, I think by now everybody knows how to keep it safe. But some people will look to the side or aren't as strict or aren't bothered, and that's for me that's the biggest danger nowadays, and especially in team sports like ours.
Niels, you guys ran a very successful cricket tournament recently, interprovincial cricket tournament. Now, you've set also an example for other sports, because Noel spoke earlier on about maybe playing Craven. Niels, what are your plans? How did you guys actually manage to have this tournament, and what were the protocols you had to put forward?
Yeah, Sean, it was a tough one. It actually got postponed twice. It was supposed to be the first week in January, and eventually we had it run about the 15th. Look, it was for people that don't know, it was our franchise under 19 Cubs week. So it's basically the last section in the pipeline before they go into real professional cricket. But they are treated like professional cricketers there. So it was quite a financial layout. We played in Stellenbosch. We stayed at the Technopark at the Protea Hotel there. We played all the matches at Marty's. We went into quarantine for 3 days on arrival before. So we were basically confined to our rooms. All the players, we got tested 5 times. And we were fortunate. We had one player and one official tested positive before they left. So obviously they couldn't come. And then on arrival, two of the players tested positive. And unfortunately, they then had to go into quarantine immediately. But that was before the tournament started. And then on the subsequent 3 tests, we had 100% negative test rate. Yeah, it was. I think it was very important from Cricket South Africa's point of view to show that cricket will go ahead and is going ahead. It was on television as well. The School Sports Live showed it. It was streamed on by Pitch Vision as well. So I think it is very important for Cricket South Africa and cricket as a whole that tournament took place. So yeah, but a lot went into it. I don't think we can do it every month because of the financial layout. I think I mentioned we had to go 3 days early because of quarantine issues. Everybody had to stay in single rooms. So there's quite a bit of cost involved, but it can be done. I think if you follow the rules and if you do the necessary right things for the tournament to go ahead.
Yeah, because I mean there must have been between players and officials over 100 people that you guys managed to get in Stellenbosch, and it shows that you can actually have a tournament as long as all the protocols are met. Like JB was talking about, all the protocols have been met. One of the questions here that's been asked was that, what's your opinion of schools forming clubs to play now that clubs are allowed to play?
Look, I think where rugby also said earlier, we need to be patient. I mean, you're going to form a club now, and from next weekend you're going to be allowed to play anyway. So and also it's just not. It's not just a case of writing down a note and slipping it through somebody's door and says we're now a club. You need to go to your local union. You need to get a club. You know, they need to actually. You need to apply. That needs to be signed off, and there are certain rules and regulations around that as well. So, and I'm not sure, especially now, in my opinion, and I must stress, in my opinion, especially now with we less than a week away from the Gazette coming out, which will state that inter-schools matches can take place. I mean, well, I can't say it will state, but I'm very confident that it will. And like I said earlier, in earlier gazettes, this is a pattern that's emerging. So, you know, you can form a club tomorrow, which is Friday, and by next Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll be allowed to play schools games anyway. So then it's basically a waste of time. So I think as we all said earlier, everybody just needs to be patient. And then I think Cricket South Africa is on record, and so Schools Cricket South Africa, is that we need to try and stretch the cricket season as long as we can. Obviously, rugby is allowed back, and football as well, because a lot of facilities are shared. And when it's winter time, when it's their turn to use the facilities, we will stand back. But if especially where rugby and cricket share facilities, and if rugby only starts mid-April, which is my understanding, from what I understand, we've got another 6 or 7 weeks of schools cricket where we can play Wednesday afternoons, we can play weekends. So there is still a window, even if it only opens next week. There's still a big window for us to play a lot of cricket, which is very important. Like Nola said, cricket is in exactly the same boat. There's a lot of anecdotal stories going around. Kids are taking up other sports, which they're allowed to do, and will they come back to cricket? You know, we are all fighting for the soul of one particular kid. And cricket is bleeding. Like, I'm sure rugby is bleeding, and soccer as well, because of what's going on, and we're all in the same boat. So as soon as, hopefully, we can get back on the park and we can all play our sports, because it doesn't matter what sport it is, as long as our kids are out there competing, playing, making new friends, learning life skills through sport. And that's my concern, is that the last year with COVID, the kids of today, and I'm not sure when we will really know what the impact was, but it can't be positive.
Now, that's also for you, JB, is that when you spoke the previous time, you spoke about losing kids to PlayStation. And I think now, between both Cricket South Africa and the football guys, that PlayStation's become a very big contender now for for your kids. You're on silent again.
So it's not only PlayStation; it's Fortnite that has a huge success between the kids, and even between some of the adults. And another concern we have to have is, I've been talking to one of my big friends that's a chief pediatrician at the biggest hospital here in Portugal, and it's everything around the time that the kids have been at home. It's not only the gadgets and the bad habits of eating, of daily routines, sleeping, everything, but it's also the child molesters, the pedophiles, the abuse, even the kids getting into depression and taking pills and having other tendencies that are very serious, and that's, for me, it's our biggest concern, and our biggest focus has to be it cricket or rugby or football or swimming, is to get the kids back to sport. Because I've seen many families that the parents, we text the players on a 2-weekly basis to check why the players haven't been back on the field. Where are they? Are they coming? Are they joining us? In Sporting, we're happy that most of our players have come back to the field, but we've also, on the other side, we have families that have said, Coach, I'm not too safe with my son getting back to the field. I'm not too safe with the protocols. I'm not too safe with all this COVID pandemic. We have elderly staying with us, so he's also at risk. So it's very serious. And just like Niels was saying, now before creating athletes, we're creating human beings, and we want to educate these kids through sports. So it's essential that they get back to the fields, and back to cricket, back to rugby, back to swimming, back to all these activities that they've been for almost a year now. And it's not only the training, then come the matches, and all these frustrations, all these challenges that they face when they play sports are important for their growth. And educating through sports has to be our main focus, has to be our main goal, and has to be our main concern. So there's no use we've lost players to cricket, we've lost a couple of players to swimming, we've lost players to other sports. Maybe we lost a few players to Fortnite. Maybe we lost a few players because they're not ready. They gained a few kilos and they're shy to get back on the field. Others because the parents lost their income financially. They're facing a few challenges, so they're not able to pay the subs or to buy new boots. So that's a huge challenge as well. At Sporting, we're trying to help as much as we can. We tell the parents that when they're honest with us and they're straightforward with us, we tell them, okay, let's talk, let's find a way that we can help you for your son to have this moment on the field where he forgets about all the problems, because when the parents are having problems, the kids also suffer at home, and in the football field they can, football or cricket or rugby field, they can forget about all these things. But there's many concerns that this pandemic brought, and many challenges. Also the facilities, very many facilities got broken into, kids got stolen, goals, poles, the fields, the teams usually, I'm sure cricket's the same and rugby is the same, at the beginning of each year, the club uses the money to fix the fields, paint the posts, do some improvements, upgrade their facilities, and the money that was used yesterday went down the drain, and now maybe these clubs don't have the support. We've been at Sporting again, I'm sure other clubs have done it also, we've shared with our local ELFA, our local football association, that we want to help these teams organize tournaments, start some fundraising, a way that we can help everybody come on board, because we're all together on this. There's no rivalry between clubs, there's no rivalry between sports. The biggest concern now is the kids and kids getting back to sports.
Niels, there's actually a question here it's actually from the football space, but I think, talking from Cricket South Africa, from a government body, it's actually an interesting one. Who are the relevant people to test or make sure that the COVID-19 protocols are followed properly? Some people are using kids, security, gardeners, etc., to perform this call. Is this correct? Remember that the mentioned personnel are not trained and it's only for convenience. What's your advice about this move? You're on mute.
The thing will be over before I get this right. I can only talk from Cricket South Africa's perspective, and we have very specific back to train and back to play rules in place. And we work through our members. So anybody from private academies, they're all registered, to schools, to clubs. Any activity that they want to take place has to go through the member. And it's up to the member to ensure that it takes place. But you're going to get irresponsible people who will take chances and who will put their kids or the older elderly that live with their kids' lives at risk. And I'm not going to say there's nothing you can do about it, but our members have been quite good. And I have to say, in the cricket space, people have been pretty compliant when it comes to how they train and when they play and how they play. Obviously, as human beings, we look for loopholes. And I suppose that's also okay, as long as if you remain within the legal framework and you adhere to social distancing, and as Coach JB said, the masks are up, not around the face, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, there was a case last year that it was actually a tragic case in rugby where there was a tournament that took part in the Eastern Cape, even though they weren't allowed to play, and unfortunately one of the players passed away. But SA Rugby was held accountable for that. So if somebody has a cricket tournament, okay, this is a very tragic case, so I'm not talking about as bad as that kind of a case, but if one of the schools or one of the unions or one of the clubs does something that breaks protocol, Cricket South Africa will be held accountable for it by the government, won't they? And then they'll be fined.
Yes, we will be. And also, and I think the coach also said earlier, is that we have to be patient, because we will get out there again. But let's not do stuff right now that will put our full return into jeopardy sooner rather than later. And it's easy to speak now, but I mean, we had countless meetings around the Cubs week. So nothing did go wrong. We had two players that tested positive. They were put in isolation, which was very tough on them. They basically had to stay on after everybody else left. But if something had to go wrong, I am very confident if there had to be an inquiry, that we put everything in place, from hand sanitizing, masks, social distancing, not allowed to go to town, not allowed to go to shops, eating apart. So everything, the actual testing that took place on every second day. So I think, and again, I'm not a legal mind, but I think if you follow the rules and you follow all the COVID regulations, firstly, I don't think much can go wrong. And secondly, if something does go wrong, if you are able to prove that you followed all the rules, I think you will be okay. That's now coming from a non-legal mind anyway.
I know you've got something else on, so you might have to rush a bit early. So I'll quickly pass this question on from our good friend Theo. He's hoping that due to the breaking competition, it'll lead to re-evaluation of the role of sport in schools. At the moment, winning is not the big thing. It's just been allowed to play and have fun, and the enjoyment comes back into it. And I know from some schools, I mean, you come from a massive school. You went to a massive school that's quite dominates sport, and it's very important for a school to have like a winning culture, because I mean that's an advertising platform for the school. But it's nice to see that now schools are actually reevaluating maybe the importance of sport as within the schools.
Is that a question to me?
That from Theo, yeah.
Yeah, Theo. I mean, I'm very aware of that stance of his, and maybe I'm a little bit cynical about it. I'm not sure. Or I used to believe that ship has sailed and it can't be turned. But maybe COVID is the intervention that will allow that. Maybe we're getting older and we're thinking differently, but sport should be an educational tool. Sport should be a tool that how we teach kids about life. Because most kids don't make it. Most kids, but what they get out of sport and what sport teaches them sets them up in life and in business. The other day, I mean, I did a quick sum the other day when my sons were in primary school and they were like little superstars here in the Sandton area. Most of those kids are not playing cricket anymore, or they are not playing in first teams. But I'm sure that the lessons and values that they picked up will serve them well going forward. And my personal view is yes. In a lot of sports, I think winning has become too important and it shouldn't be. It should be about winning is important because nobody likes losing and whatever, but it shouldn't be what drives us. It should be part of the process.
We've got two very specific football questions, but before we get to them, there's a couple of questions I just wanted to put to you, Niels. One is that many of the private schools went back to training when school started. Is this against regulations?
No. They were from when school started, they were allowed to train and playing intra matches, but not against other schools. And we're still at that point.
And the other one is that schools, so you said that schools can play intra-leagues. How do they do this if schools don't have necessary facilities or qualified coaches? What long impact will this have on school sports? So this is from one of the primary schools that actually shares facilities, shares coaches with other schools because they can't actually afford to have their own facilities and their own coaches. How can they actually do that without breaking the COVID rules?
I'm not sure if I understand that question, but to be brutally honest with you, if I understand the gist of it, is that unfortunately COVID has opened up and has illuminated the fault lines in our society, where it's easier for the haves to come back into the sport and the have-nots to come back into the sport. And from Cricket South Africa's point of view, it's an ongoing battle that we have even before COVID, is to address those issues. But from what I can see, and again, remember, school cricket hasn't started. Guys are training, guys are playing matches amongst themselves, middle practice and the like. So I think that will only become clear from next week, how many schools actually do get back. And we have asked our members to give us, to do their weekly orders to see who plays and who doesn't play. But it is an issue and we need to address it, but it's not, it's not because of COVID. COVID has just showed it up again.
Cool. Thanks, Niels. I think you have to go now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Thank you so much, Niels. Thank you so much. It was actually fantastic to hear what you had to say. And I think you've given a lot of other sports, not just cricket, a lot of coaches from other sports, and they're from people from different backgrounds here that have learned quite a bit from what you had to say. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And I can't wait to start cricket. I mean, with the KFC mini cricket program that I'm so busy with, I can't wait to see those kids on the field playing. And there's a lot more to it than just the playing. There's a whole social aspect behind KFC Mini Cricket that is so important for all schools and kids.
Man, you have no idea. Get them away from the computers and whatever else they're up to, and on back in the sports field, be it rugby, soccer, cricket, whatever. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nels. All right. Coach JB, I just want to take that one question back to you again. Where is it? You actually replied on about that whole thing about schools going back to private schools going back to training. And you actually made a good point. It's not about them going back to training, it's how they went back to training that's important to you.
Look, it's of course, again, I'm still 10,000 kilometers away, but we can see things on social media and we can just search and look. And it's not only the clubs; it was also not only the schools, but also the clubs. We saw many clubs, many schools going back to training. It was allowed. I don't think any sports was allowed at the school a few weeks ago, but we saw that some schools were having training. The kids were running in the at the fields at the school during break, before school, after school, and of course talking. We had again, we had 6 weeks of Zoom, so I usually take the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes to talk to the kids to see how they're doing, what are they doing at school. And many kids said, Coach, we're very strict. We can't be next to each other. Other kids said, no, we can play soccer during break. We can play netball. We can play tennis. We can do anything. So it's and we knew that this was going to happen. I saw many clubs that probably didn't even close throughout the whole lockdown last year. And my biggest worry is not, hey, why are they doing it and we're not, is the way they're doing it. And some clubs, again, like I said before, we saw some clubs in our region, which I follow on social media, not following the protocols. Parents on the stands next to each other without masks. Again, the coaches with the mask on their chin or without a mask. The players going to the field without even recording their temperatures. And of course, this is going to escalate. We're going to start a chain of COVID-19 cases because we weren't responsible. So. Again, Neil said that the schools were allowed to play cricket or to train in the beginning of the year when the private schools came back. But for me, it's not even the case of being allowed or not. It's the way you do it and how responsible you are. And again, we're dealing with kids. We have to show them, because if my daughters or my stepsons come home and tell me that I'm doing it wrong and I'm taking too many chances, we're gonna listen. Sometimes we listen more to them than to other people around us. So it's our responsibility to educate the kids, and sometimes educate the parents through the kids. And in football, unfortunately, probably we have the most coaches at the fields for the kids, because we have one coach that's coaching the kids and we have 20 parents that are coaches coaching the kids on the other side of the field. But and sometimes we have to send these messages also to the parents that, hey, I don't go to your house or to your work telling you how to do things. You don't come to the field and tell your son how to play. You're paying subs, or you're trusting the coach to coach your son. So you must trust his coaching. So I think the most important thing now is for the associations to be strict on these protocols, and make sure that the clubs take the protocols very seriously. And I'll be honest with you, at Sporting, as you know, we when the kids go to a match, we have the kids like Champions League set out inside the changing room, and the kids get there. We tell them the numbers. They get dressed. After the match, they go back on the changing room and they put and they give us the kit and they put their own kit back on. But now during this probably the whole season, the kids will have to get their own match shirt, and they come with their match shirt. They go to the field, put on the soccer boots, have a little team talk after the match, put your backpack on, and go home. So all this, we have to. It's like I was saying. I don't think we can't not waste, but we should invest our time and our all of the energy we have on the next steps. How are we going to overtake this? How are we going to motivate all the kids and the parents as well to get back on the field? Because from what I hear from Redham and from other schools, is they're not allowed to play between schools. So the kids need this competition, but they need us to make it safe for everybody. And if Sporting ever reaches a field where there's no social distancing, their coaches don't have masks, we'll just walk off because we can't take any chances. We can't go now back on the field, then we have to go off the field for another 4 or 5 months. And now with winter coming up, we have to be very respect this pandemic very much.
So there's two questions that kind of like very similar, and they kind of go into a little bit more detail about what you were just talking about. So the one question is with regards to soccer, can somebody forward, this is for George, can somebody forward some guidelines, or do you have any guidelines on how training schedules could be conducted so that players and coaches have sessions planned that people are safe distance from each other when doing training sessions? So do you have any guidelines or any tips or any ideas that you can do to assist the coaches?
Look, for again with the with Sporting, and also I've been lucky to be in webinars just like yours, sharing experiences with the coaches from South Africa and from Portugal and other countries. Our biggest, one of the safest ways to do it is to keep your groups short. Again, putting pressure on, not pressure, but educating the kids not to shake their hands, not to share bottles of water, not to go drink water from the taps, because they drink all water from the same tap and they're touching the tap. So there's these things we can do. Other than that, we can only do what's done all over the world, checking the temperature, making a questionnaire, and being very, very, very strict in implementing all the protocols. At Sporting now, the bibs are of course a huge issue, because kids sharing bibs are from one player to another, or even from one team to the other team that trains the next day, is of course raising the risks. Like I said before, nothing is 100% safe, not even staying at home, because there's people coming to your house or to your building, or touching something you touched outside, like when the people from Uber Eats, for example, come to your house. You never know what they've touched, if they can be infected or not. So we have to narrow the risk as much as possible. And again, what we do as Sporting is we after every training session, we have a head coach, that's Eldon, and 3 more coaches that are responsible. Then we have meetings on WhatsApp after every training sessions, and we go over what we can do. And there's people from the office that go around the fields and take some pictures, and at the end I always go over them and see what we can improve. But again, we can never be 100% safe, but we have to be as safe as possible.
Now, Nikis has actually asked a question, and I must admit, we spent a couple of hours in a conference yesterday discussing this and other problems similar to it. Is that in returning to play, how coaches handle the problems with players' mental settlement? So players mentally getting back into the game, and the condition mentally that they're coming into, from a lockdown period to come into the game again. How do you mentally prepare the kids? And then I'll also ask the question from a physical side, but first let's go to the mental side.
Sean, I think for me, that's the biggest challenge. Well, the first biggest challenge is to get the kids to want to come to the training and to the field. The second challenge is to assess the boys' mindset, or the kids' mindset. And like I was saying before, we have various kids that were scared to go back on the field, scared because they gained weight, scared because they were alone at the house, maybe with no brothers or sisters. They were alone at the house for several months, and they're scared to interact with other kids, scared that they will be bullied, scared that they won't be up to the levels of the game they had before the lockdown. There's various challenges, and of course there's the challenge of frustration, the challenge of being dribbled, getting the nutmeg that the boys like to do so much, and then getting teased by his teammates. But this is important that we tell the kids that it's okay, it will come back to them. But I've seen many kids, as you know, the Sporting has horizontal shirts, stripes on their shirt, and we've seen some boys not the stripes aren't horizontal anymore because they gained a little weight. We have about five players that didn't want to come back to training until the parents bought a kit a size bigger than they had before, because they don't fit in the shirt anymore. They don't want to come to the training session, and again, having their friends bully them or tease them because they gain some weight. So there's the image, there's the technical side that they're not able to dribble, not able to run. When we came back on a Saturday, even though we could have come back I think on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday the previous week, but we decided to go back on a Saturday because we knew that the next day the boys will be finished. Their legs will be sore, they'll be tired. So instead of doing it during the week where they have to wake up for school the next day and they'll be sore, let's do it on a Saturday so that they can rest on a Sunday, and Monday they'll be back. They'll be ready to come back to school. And to be honest with you, it wasn't only with the players. I talked to the coaches on Sunday, and some of them were also sore. Yes, this coach looks like a truck run over me. I can't even walk, can't go up the stairs. So there's the physical side, there's the technical side, and just like you said, Sean, is the mental side. The kids nowadays, these generations, the millennials, and after that, they're so different than what we were. We played in the streets, and I'm sure in South Africa happened the same as here. So we were ready for these challenges. We were ready to be challenged by our friends, to lose games, to win games, to get nutmegged, to get teased, and we took it. Now the boys are, for me, they're not as ready as we were. They don't have the tools that we had. So now we have to give them those tools. And nowadays at the training sessions, this is a very important part. We have to manage the level of the players. We have to at Sporting we have a rule that during the whole development year of the player at Sporting at our club is that they have comfortable moments and uncomfortable moments. The comfortable moments is when they play against players the same level as them, the same age as them, probably even a little bit weaker than them. An uncomfortable moment where we challenge them against stronger players, against bigger players, against faster players. And we have to manage these moments throughout the whole year. So at the end, we can make a balance and say, okay, you developed, you didn't develop. And of course, again, in football, I think we have it more than probably any other sports because everybody that supports Liverpool knows more about football when Liverpool loses a game. They know more than Klopp, and the Tottenham fans know more than Mourinho when he loses a game, even though he's Portuguese, so he knows more than everybody else. But so we have this challenge in football, and our talk to the parents and parents at Sporting are probably the best parents in any other club in the world. We have monthly meetings and we go over this so we can coach the parents as well. Look, you pay your subs, trust us, at the end of the year, you just have to do one thing throughout the season is bring your son to the training sessions. We'll do the rest. And at the end of the year, we'll sit down and you see your son will be playing better than he was in the beginning of the year. He'll be happier and he'll be fitter. If not, then it's our fault. So you can't push us to play your son up a team or on the wing or up front or be the captain or take penalties because it's impossible. At Sporting, it doesn't happen. Of course, parents can come and talk to me about these things, but the answer is always the same. I'm the coach here. The last word is always mine. If you like it, great. If you want to decide on what your son is, how his steps are going to be throughout the development, then you have to be a coach for his team and somewhere else, not at Sporting.
There's a study that came out. It's a preliminary study that they've done already with players and in various sports, getting back into sport. And depending on what the sport is and the age group is, there's an increase of injuries between 40 to 60% since the reintroduction. They did a study in the Premier League in the UK, the PSL in South Africa. They've done it on, I think water polo is the sport with the highest amount of injuries because a lot of those players have just gone into gym and just pumped iron or not even going to gym, done it at home without a proper personal trainer or anybody to watch them. And of course, done the exercise incorrectly and injured themselves. But something like football, where when you go to practice, the guys do funny moves where they change direction very quickly. It's a very difficult thing to coach when you're at home, on your Zoom coaching sessions. This is quite a big thing that people can actually get injured, quite badly injured, I think, in coming back to sport again. I mean, if it's happening on the professional side, it's definitely going to happen even bigger in the amateur side.
100%. And Sean, in the professionals, I don't know if people know, but if you don't know, if you didn't know, now. Sporting is first by 10 points in the Portuguese league, and for me, and it's talked here in Portugal, one of the main reasons is that Sporting's starting lineup has always at least half of the team, so more than half, about 6 players younger than 21 years old. So all these months that the players were away from the field, of course, it's going to affect them physically. And be it in England where they have games every 3 days almost, or in Portugal where some of the teams only play from weekend to weekend, but they recover quicker. And they're still suffering the consequences of all this time away from the field. And of course, worse than that is the players that catch COVID-19. They have to stay at home, isolated for 2 weeks. They can do anything. They can do all the exercises at home, but being on the field is completely different. And of course, there's all over the world. There's athletes, top athletes that have passed away of heart problems, and they also say that maybe they related also for the because of COVID-19 and how it affects the heart. But with our players, we've had several cases like that. Players being sore, it's perfectly natural. But we've had players, especially the older boys, getting injuries, hamstrings, thighs, calves, mostly because they go to the gym. They still were able to go to the gym even when football was suspended. But when they go to the gym, especially after the age of 13 and 14, where they start looking in the mirror, where the girls start looking at them and they want to show off all their muscles. So there's no warm up, there's no cool down, there's no hydration during their training, and there's no routines followed by any PT or anybody responsible. So the boys just want to gain weight, and when they get out on the field, we got the first week we had 3 players. And now they have to stay away from the field because they ripped calves or hamstrings because they were so tense. No stretching again, no hydration, and unfortunately, the boys have no notion of this, and we tell them constantly. Even at some schools, and we've seen training sessions at some schools where the coaches just rock up on the field, make the players do 5 laps or do suicides, and there's no warm up, there's no hydration, there's no cool down or stretching at the end. And this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous for the kids. So we try to discipline them, to tell them, look, when you're at school, if your coaches don't warm up or do a proper warm up with you, which most of them do, but if they don't do it, you must do it yourselves. And any session you plan, may it be rugby, football, water polo, the intensity has to start low, reach a top intensity around 2/3 of the training sessions, and you always have to do a cool down and a stretching at the end. And if you don't do it, of course you're going to get injured. And the older the players are, the more risk they have of getting injuries. And then they go back home 3 or 4 weeks, not training. So again, the process starts from scratch again. But we've seen a couple of injuries, not too much, thank God. Even on the first week we went back to training, the coaches, the first 2 weeks and a half, it was tournaments. The kids just played. The coaches were on the side just checking if everything was okay, and the boys just had to have fun, play games. Best players with worst players that were fit with players that weren't fit, just mix up the teams like well, here in Portugal we had the way we played was we switch at 5 and at 10. The players that weren't that good would go in goals. The player that brought the ball was always the striker. So we had these rules, and we tried to implement these rules. So most of all, they had fun at the training session, and the most important sentence that we put out at the end of the training is make the boys want to come back the next day.
I think the biggest reason why sporting players are under the age of 21 is because by the time they're 21, they're playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona or somebody else.
That as well. Exactly.
There's just a question here. Do they play with masks on? Should the kids be playing with masks on? I know I was trying to carry some stuff today up and down a flight of stairs with my mask on, and eventually I was feeling faint, and it was very difficult to do it. So I think it's very difficult for kids to train with masks on.
Look, Sean, I've read a couple of studies, and again, through this COVID-19, I think there's studies and ways to read all these charts and the graphs and the lines and the curves, many ways. But I agree with a couple of studies that I've seen from especially England and the United States, that football is one of the sports with less risks to catch COVID. Having the bibs on is of course raises, if you share bibs, raises of course the risks of spreading the pandemic. And if somebody is contagious, they're gonna it's one of the ways that you can get the virus to another person. But it's very difficult through the sweat, through all these things, unless you're kissing the other player, which doesn't happen much in football. So it's very difficult sharing the water bottle. So there's the risk of contracting the virus playing football in football and many other sports. Of course, sports like rugby and karate and judo, those of course are more at risk. But there's also ways in those sports to avoid raising the risks themselves. But all these studies say, and again, going back to the part of educating these kids, is that we have to educate them to want to be healthy. And if they're healthy, they're less liable to get COVID or any other disease. So again, these are the tools we have to tell them that, look, people that most of the people that die through COVID-19 is because COVID-19 was aggravated a certain disease that the person already had. So be healthy, eat well, do your invisible training, which is the training off the field, eating, sleeping, everything, drinking. So, and like that, you'll be a healthier person. You'll be less liable to get COVID-19 or any other disease.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for chatting to us today. I think a lot of coaches learned a lot from what you, Niels, and Noel had to say. It's been great to tap into you. And Cassie's quickly going to do a bit of a summary and announce something big for next week.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on once again. And I'd like to thank the rugby and Niels for coming on as well. But to all the coaches, you must, we are going to be slotting in an additional webinar next week, because we've heard now from the sporting bodies, we've heard from SARU, we've heard from Cricket South Africa, we've heard from a club perspective. So next week we are bringing in the Department of Basic Education, the sport department, and they're going to come and chat to us about what they have to say about opening up sport. So that is going to be actually very interesting. So Joao, you can also come on next week and hear what they have to say as well. So there we are, from the people that are the custodians of school football. So I just have got that to announce, and also we'll be telling you more about it via your email, so you'll hear a little bit more. So thank you very much to everybody. Sorry, we've gone a little bit over, only 6 minutes. There are some other questions that have come in, and some requests has come in. A request that we'll do quickly, and that's to Joas. Kids, do you have any material that you can share with other coaches that actually don't have the equipment to be able to go out onto the field? So do you have anything that you can assist that with?
Was that to me? The question to me? Yeah.
Yes.
Look, I want to help as much as I can in as many clubs as I can. So the only thing we can do is share protocols and share the way that we get the kids and the coaches back on the field. So if any coach, if you would be up to it, if any coach wants my contact, I can help them. The physical things that we use at practice is, of course, the sanitizer, a cloth, lots of water. The kids must drink lots of water, but it's mostly sanitizing everything as much as possible. But again, if I'm completely open to help anybody that wants. If coaches want to go to our academy or to our soccer school in Bedford View, I'll be happy to have them there and watch and take some notes and then implement the same thing at their clubs. So if anybody wants that, I'm completely open to help anybody that needs help.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I did see just another, it was more of a comment here more than a question, saying that private academies are starting festivals with school players despite not being allowed to, despite the fact that the schools aren't allowed to play. I think there will be some people that will always try and take advantage of certain situations, but unfortunately, it is not allowed. There are certain festivals that can take place, and those festivals, like some of the amateur ones at Cricket South Africa, are allowed to take place this weekend, over the weekends. But that is within certain guidelines. So, but people have tried to break the rules in some cases, unfortunately. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Coach JB. And
thank you for having me.
And hopefully we see you back in South Africa soon.